If you're the founder or senior leader of a business with 10 to 75-ish people and you've been wondering how to do more good, create more impact, or bring more purpose into your work, then this is for you. Maybe your team is asking some questions. Maybe customers, suppliers, investors are pushing for more transparency. Maybe you just know there's more your business could be doing, but you're not sure where to start or how to prove any of the good that you're doing. Or perhaps you are B Corp curious and you've seen or heard something about B Corp out there and you want to know a little bit more. If you're looking for shortcuts, quick ways to greenwash, tick some boxes, and to kind of try and prove you're doing some good, but you're not really that into it, then this will not be for you. I work with businesses who have the mindset, the intent, and the desire to want to be better and want to do more good in the world. So if that is you, keep on listening. If it's not you, go and make yourself a cup of tea. You've just got a few minutes of your life back. Who am I anyway to be talking about all this stuff? Well, I'm Tim Jones, also known as that B Corp bloke. And I specialize in helping companies simplify and fast track their journey to B Corp certification as the tool to enable all of that good stuff we just talked about. But why do I do that? Out of all of the career paths I could have chosen in my life, well, I say that I have a degree in medieval history, so other than being a librarian, how did I end up here? Well, I guess you could say I didn't choose the B Corp life, it chose me. This is me in my former life. I spent the first 10 years or so of my career in medical device sales. So yes, think kind of like Netflix programs like The Pharmacist and Painkillers, but not quite as seedy. The products I sold were actually fixing people that had things actually wrong with them, at least. And life was great for me. I had tons of money, a free car, free phone, free healthcare. I'd get to go to the best restaurants. I traveled internationally and was generally living an amazing life for a young man in his 20s. And I thought I was living a life of meaning that was underpinning that. And I was to a degree. I mean, my job was literally to go into operating theatres and ensure that the surgical teams got the best outcome for the patients that they were operating on. But I wasn't truly purpose driven because fundamentally I was only focused on me maximising my financial return. And then after a while of working in the industry, I also got thinking about some things I was seeing in the industry. It started when one of the companies I was working for got into what could be described as just a little bit of trouble. Now, the medical device industry is hyper competitive, and for companies to maintain market share, they need to stay ahead of the pack. Now, this means launching products to market as quickly as possible. It also means that patient care is not always the priority, as was demonstrated with this one company, when 4 patients died on the operating table with the launch of one product. And sadly, this product launch was driven by the surgeon who happened to be a shareholder in the company. Having gone through that process, though, the internal spin machine at the company kind of kicked in. And it was all kind of like, hey, look, it's medical misadventure. We've got to push the boundaries with new products. This thing happens all the time. It's not just our company. And so, yeah, that internal spin machine was able to gloss over that for me. And I was soon able to compartmentalize it and move on. And then a few years later, there was another speed wobble in that career when a whistleblower in one of the competitors in a major medical device company basically reported their company to the US Department of Justice for making illegal payments to their customers. They were in many cases literally paying their customers to use their products, which is kind of insane. And, where can I get a job like that where I get paid to do my job as well as being paid by the company for using their product? Absolutely crazy. But again, the companies came out with the spin, it's a level playing field because we're all doing it. There's no harm, no foul here. So things were just really starting to not feel right. I started to really begin to question, what I was doing. It wasn't though until the birth of my daughter on the back of basically in 2012, on the back of a sequence of massive earthquakes that we went through here in Christchurch in Canterbury, New Zealand, where I live. So between 2010 and 2011, we had a sequence of massive earthquakes. And then in 2012, our daughter was born. And that got me to really sit up and take a good look at what I was doing. I mean, I'm working in an industry that should just be about fixing people and saving lives, but instead it was knowingly killing them just to make more money. Like, what was I doing? Some of the companies that I'd worked for even had their values about how their primary aim was to make people better engraved in stone in their offices, but it just wasn't true. All they cared about was profit maximization at any cost. And to be honest, some of the surgeons were not much better. I really got this feeling that I was living against my moral compass. I was part of a system and a way of doing things that didn't align with who I perhaps thought I really was. And ultimately, I got to thinking there had to be more to life. So over this period from 2010 to 2012, I had what the clinical literature basically would call a subconscious awakening. It's well documented that if you have a near-death experience, if someone close to you passes away, someone of significance, or you have the birth of a child into your, your immediate family or slightly wider family, it can create this shock to your system. It's what I now call the existential wet fish to the face. It's that moment when the universe just hits you with a massive wet salmon in the chops when you least expect it. And so in 2013, I finally decided enough was enough. And so I made the leap to get out of the medical device industry. I clearly remember the moment when I was standing in the operating theatre and made that decision. And I went home afterwards to my wife and said, look, I'm done. I'm getting out. Now, the medical device world is a very, very strange one in many ways. And so I got to thinking, look, perhaps all the things I'd been seeing were just specific to the medical device industry. So I made the decision I want to get out of medical device and get into something else, probably get into a leadership role because I was in my early 30s. So I ended up applying for about 80 different roles in all sorts of weird and wacky and wonderful industries. And so ultimately, I was hired as the general manager for a firm of surveyors, basically building surveyors, property consultants here in Christchurch. And at first, it felt great. I was building a team, helping them pursue opportunities that were all about supporting the rebuild of Christchurch post-earthquake. But after a while, a few cracks started to appear. Within the company itself, it was clear that maximizing profit was the overarching driver for pretty much all decisions, frequently at the expense of the personnel. I did get involved with the New Zealand Green Building Council, thinking that this might be one of the little islands of goodness in a sea of mediocrity. They were all about advocating for better environmental standards in the rebuild of Christchurch. But beyond that, most of the people in the wider construction industry, all they cared about was maximizing financial return at any cost to society or the environment. It was just give me a cheap building that's quick to put up that gives me a big return. That's all the property industry cared about. Meanwhile, everyone else, the community, the citizens of Christchurch were like, no, we want a sustainable, family-friendly, livable city. Completely at odds with each other. So it really felt like it was a case of out of the frying pan and into the fire. There was this growing misalignment within me. It's what I now call the authenticity gap. There were two Tims. There was Work Tim, who towed the line, nodded in the meetings about increasing utilization and productivity. But then there was like the home Tim, or the more authentic Tim, whose heart was telling me that I was in the wrong path. And I was really struggling with life, with this dualism. I couldn't get my head around the fact that life was just going to be like this. Is this all there is for the next 40 years? Just working for companies that just want to make as much money as possible. I figured, well, it must just be me. It's not them. And this created some really high levels of depression and anxiety. I just wanted to get out of this work system. But to help work out why I was feeling that way, I had to go searching inside myself for some answers. How had I ended up here? How had we all ended up here in this system of just prioritizing profit at all costs? How had I spent so long thinking that what I was doing in the medical world was actually okay? Why couldn't anyone else see what I was seeing? Surely I couldn't be the only one struggling with how it seemed to be that we were running the show. Well, there was some good news because it turned out that I wasn't alone. Having gone down a bit of a Google rabbit hole at work one day, I stumbled across this thing called B Corp Certification. I was like, B what? So these are this thing called certified B corporations. It was this new form of business that aimed to balance purpose and profit. And I thought, wow, that sounds really interesting. So the idea behind them was that rather solely focusing on profit maximization, they have to consider the impact of their operations on their workers, their customers, their suppliers, the community that they work in, and the environment. It was this collection of businesses from around the world that felt and behaved in the way that I was now thinking and wanting to behave. And they had a common vision of working to be the best for the world, not the best in the world. It's like there were these amazing organizations that had a declared higher purpose that was prioritized over just looking to make as much money as possible. So I did a bit more research and I thought there can't be one in New Zealand, but it turns out there was one. And even better, they were just down the road from me here in Christchurch, and it's a company called Eagle Protect. After a week of umming and ahhing, I figured, look, I've got nothing to lose. So I sent the CEO, Steve Arder, an email and asked him if I could come round for a cuppa. We booked in a 45-minute meeting and I left his office probably 3 or 4 hours later after an extravaganza and my mind just being blown by the possibilities of this B Corp movement. I knew that this is what I'd been looking for. But how could I get amongst it? So initially, I took the idea of B Corp back to the property consultancy. But in all honesty, they just weren't interested. Literally, it was like, will this thing help us make more money? I don't know, I said. At the same time, I was also keen to explore the idea of me getting into the world of coaching and training as a career path. It's something that I toyed with for a few years during my medical device career, but didn't know how to get into it. After a couple of conversations with some connections, though, I actually managed to network my way into a role doing just that. So I started working for a small family owned business that was really values aligned as a sales coach and trainer. And I thought they might be open to this B Corp idea. And they were, but they just had too much on their plates at the time to consider it. It seemed that I'd reached a bit of a dead end. I then figured, look, I'd been talking to everyone about this B Corp concept, so perhaps maybe I should pony up and go do it for myself. And in late 2015, I was offered the perfect opportunity as I and a good number of the rest of the team at the training company I was working for were made redundant. Now, if you know anyone contemplating the leap into self-employment, here's a few tips on how not to do it. Don't have a very young child. So I think at this point, our daughter was about 2-ish. Don't have a partner who's not earning any money because they're primarily looking after said child. Don't have just bought a house and have a fairly decent sized mortgage. And also don't have a father living in the UK who gets diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. There were compelling arguments pulling me back, telling me to go and get a proper job, as my mum would say, but the sense of resolve was massive due to my sense of purpose, and I knew I only had one option, and that was to go and start my own B Corp. 2016 was a year of huge challenges, absolutely mega. Starting a business in a fledgling industry was tough enough, but there were harder conversations that had to be had with my father over 3 month long trips back to the UK as we tried to work out our relationship as he was getting progressively more sick. All the while trying to make a crust and keep my business alive. But the more I looked at what I felt I was being pulled to do, the more my resolve was strengthened. Unfortunately, in late 2016, my father passed away. But Grow Good was kind of on track. I'd got certified as one of the founding B Corps in New Zealand, B Corp number 5, and my personal purpose was locked in to help co-create a world of abundance that my daughter could inherit, where every human thrives in a manner that's regenerative to each other and the planet we call home. And that's what I'm all about now. And I do that primarily by helping others get on that B Corp journey. So maybe you want to get into growing some more good in your world, but maybe you don't know where to start. It turns out that I'm not the only person, though, who's had this existential wet fish to the face moment. Because here's the thing, for decades, we've all been told that business has just got one job, to maximize profit. But there's more than one scorecard that you can track as a business. That old way of just prioritizing profit at all costs is fading. I've sat in boardrooms where the managing directors refer to the teams as assets to be sweated. Like that mindset is on its way out. This old way, the shareholder primacy, short-term wins, externalizing costs to people, planet, even your own mental health possibly, like I was. The new way, it's purpose. It's purpose-driven, balance making money and doing good, purpose and profit. It creates businesses that serves more than just the shareholders. It's about serving your workers, your customers, your communities and the planet. And the market is noticing. Over the last decade or so, increasingly, your customers, your employees, your suppliers, your boards, and your investors are wanting to know more about your social and environmental footprint. The general trend is up and up. Brands that lead with purpose are proven to outperform their peers in terms of growth, resilience, talent retention, and customer loyalty. But where do you start eating this elephant? I mean, obviously not literally because we're supposed to be saving the elephants, but how can you start doing more good in your business? Do you go all in on waste reduction? Do you look into your supply chain? What about, do we get living wage certified? It's tough. There's a lot of options out there, but there could just be a certification framework out there that helps you manage and report your requirements all in one. Ta-da! B Corp certification. As I've said, B Corps are leaders of a global movement of business as a force for good. They meet some of the highest independently verified standards when it comes to transparency and accountability around social and environmental performance. It's basically achieved by measuring the positive contribution that your organization is making through an assessment called the B Corp Impact Assessment. Fundamentally, it's a measure of the good that your business creates from its operations. The certification tool is basically a formula for helping you maximize the good that you can create in and through your organization. It's also well regarded amongst certification frameworks because it's globally recognized, it's independently verified, and as I've said, it covers both your social and environmental performance. Most importantly, and how I see it work, is it acts like a lightning rod. It helps you put this thing in the middle of your company that pulls together all the good that you're already doing to help you demonstrate that to your key stakeholders. It's also, I'm pretty much guarantee, the one certification that will get your team and other stakeholders actually excited and inspired about the journey you could go on to do more good. So look, if you're kind of nodding along and you want in, but you don't know where to start, here's how I can help. I like to describe the B Corp Impact Assessment as rigorous but achievable. I mean, if doing good was that easy, we'd all be doing it already, right? And so this is what I can help you with. My reason for being is to simplify and fast track your journey to B Corp certification so that you can do the right thing for people and planet and get the business results that many B Corps around the world unlock. Think of me as kind of like the after-school tutor with the book to help you crush the open book exam for the first time through a mix of coaching and advising your team and providing the cheat codes you need to get it done. I'll bring the energy, the fun, the inspiration to you and your team so that you can make the process as educational, but most importantly, as engaging as possible for your entire organization. It's crucial that we bring your team on the journey and leave you with the right content so that you can tell your impact story at the end. So, how do we go about doing this? Well, the people that I work with are just like you. They're capable and potentially able to do the assessment by themselves, but they typically have three main barriers. And they say things like, I'm lacking the time. I find it hard to make time to just sit down and go through the assessment. I don't have time to think about, let alone create all the policy documents that I might need for certification. You might also feel like you're lacking some specialist knowledge. You might not be a sustainability specialist. You might not be sure how to answer some of the questions. And maybe you don't really understand the methodologies behind the framework. And that's totally cool because you're not an expert on the B Corp. And lastly, people would say they don't want to complete it in isolation. They don't want to, they want to have some confidence in what they're doing, and they want to connect maybe with other people and have an expert hold their hands through this journey. And so that's where my Be Better program comes in. It's a proven 4-step system to simplify and fast track your journey to B Corp certification. It is everything you need to get the good growing in your business and get you B Corp certified. It looks like this. So phase 1 is kickoff, an all company kickoff. It's a high energy interactive session that gets your whole team aligned and on board. We then move into the coaching where I guide you through the B Corp impact assessment. We'll answer the questions literally line by line, question by question together. We'll help you avoid the common mistakes and ensure that you meet the standard for you to be able to successfully pass B Corp. You get access to what I call the magic folder, 300 plus templates, policies and tools to help you prove the good that you're already doing. Part 3, we bring you into community. We give you access to my Be Better community of like-minded business leaders where we give you bonus support, content, training, and other bits and pieces. And then finally, once you're certified, we'll help you communicate everything that you've done. Once you're certified, I'll help you tell your story. You get access to my impact storytelling workshop and we'll co-create a press release and also give you a guest spot on my Be Better podcast. To date, touch wood, 100% of my clients who've submitted for certification have passed first time. And I've helped more than 1/3 of New Zealand's B Corp certify, as well as companies from around the world, such as Hong Kong, the UK, Ireland, and Australia. So look, if you're ready to do business better and you want someone to make it simple, doable, and possibly even fun and engaging, then let's connect and see whether the Be Better program is right for you. Just have a look. There'll be some details around here for you to click on to make that become a thing. Like I said, the truth is this, the old way of business is fading. Profit at all costs isn't just risky, it's outdated. The businesses that will thrive in the next decade and beyond are those that lead with purpose, but can back up their values with verifiable action. And B Corp is how you do that. And the Be Better program is how I can help you get there clearly, confidently, and with your integrity intact. If that sounds like the kind of business that you want to build, let's have a chat. I'd look forward to catching up with you.